Neighborhoods in Kennesaw are a little different from the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta when it comes to things like HOA and safety and basements in the homes and even the price of the homes. If you're considering buying a home here, you have to understand what makes Kennesaw uh, different. Right away, one of those things is the HOAs. I have so many of you calling me and telling me that you don't want to buy a house in an HOA. Apparently, there are nightmare stories of the HOAs in other parts of the country, but here in Metro Atlanta, and especially somewhere like Kennesaw, the HOAs are far more hands off. They're not going around like measuring the height of your bushes or making sure that your fences or your mailboxes are a certain style or height. They're not really that difficult as the way that some of y'all describe the HOAs in other states. Keep in mind that HOAs here in Metro Atlanta and in Kennesaw are like seven, eight, $900 a year. They don't have the amount of money to afford to pay somebody to like be the rent-a-cop of the neighborhood to make sure that everybody's following the rules. For the most part, these HOAs exist to make sure that the home values don't plummet. They're to collect the money for like the pool and the tennis courts and the clubhouse. They're not trying to be difficult. They just have to have some way to afford those amenities for the neighborhood. While most of the neighborhoods in the northern parts of Metro Atlanta have HOAs, Kennesaw doesn't have as many. I'd say it's probably a little bit less in Kennesaw. And so this is something to consider. I know some people absolutely don't want an HOA when they move into their new neighborhood, or some people absolutely do want the HOA with the pool and the tennis courts and that kind of community vibe. So it's really something that you have to look at, but keep in mind that we have a little bit less. Instead of 95% of the neighborhoods having an HOA, in Kennesaw, I'd say it's like 80% of the neighborhood. So certainly something to think about when you're buying a home here. And then another big one is the amount of trees. I know I say all the time that Metro Atlanta in general has a lot of trees and a lot of the neighborhoods have a lots of trees here, but Kennesaw has the most. I mean, there is tons of vegetation and super tall pine trees in a lot of these Kennesaw neighborhoods. And while this is cool and a lot of people want that kind of nature and that kind of vegetation like surrounding them and the home that they live in, you got to be careful of pine trees or really any tree that's too close to a home. One of the biggest things that it can affect is the roof of a home. If the roof of a home has a bunch of trees overhanging the roof, it tends to shorten the lifespan of that roof. If you've got leaves falling on there all the time, which holds on to the water when it rains, and so it tends to hurt the roof a little bit, and you have to like blow those leaves off all the time, which can be a big pain in the ass. So you want to make sure to not have too many trees close to the home, trees overhanging the roof of a home. And if you find a home that you absolutely love, you certainly can either request for the seller to remove those trees, or you can cut down those trees as soon as you move in. Something that you really want to think about when it comes to homes in Kennesaw. Something else that we're seeing very often here in the city is that the move-in ready homes, the ones that don't have any problems at all, they are still going off the market and are being sold within a matter of a few days. And then the homes that maybe need some work, they tend to last a little longer on the market. And so that's something that you want to think about. It's really two different strategies when you're buying a home. If you're looking for that perfect move-in ready home that doesn't need any work, you might be paying, list price or maybe even above list price. But if you're willing to do work to a home, if you're willing to buy a home that needs TLC, then you shouldn't necessarily be paying the list price. That would be a home that's been on the market for 30 days. So similar rule in Kennesaw as some of the other North Metro Atlanta cities. A home that's been on the market for 7 or maybe even 14 days, the seller is still looking for list price. Anything more than that, usually after about 14 days, especially when you get to like 30 days, the seller has kind of come to terms with the fact that the home might be a little bit overpriced and they're willing to accept a little less for the home than their list price. So that's something that we're seeing a lot. And then another one is that sellers are starting to give a little bit more when it comes to repairs. Remember that when you buy a home, you are definitely going to have a home inspection to make sure that everything is okay with the home. And the home inspector is always going to find problems because that's what they get paid to do. If they didn't find problems, then they wouldn't have a job. So they're always going to nitpick a whole bunch of little things about the home, but it's the major things that we're seeing sellers are starting to help out a little bit more as we're starting to see less buyers in the market because interest rates are increasing. We're starting to see that homes are lasting on the market a little bit longer, which means sellers are willing to make a bit more repairs. In fact, let's talk about some market numbers that we're seeing here in this city. In the last 90 days in Kennesaw, the average sold price for a home has been $420,000, which is absolutely a great price for still being in Cobb County, the excellent Cobb County public school system, the community, the safety that you find in Cobb County. $420,000 is a great price. Compare this to neighboring Marietta, where the average sold price is about $515,000, or Suwannee, which is in Gwinnett County, and the average home price is about $650,000. This is why Kennesaw is absolutely one of my favorite suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta. You can still get a lot of those Cobb County amenities, but you're paying a little bit less than some of the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. In general, the area is very suburban. You know, you're going to find that the neighborhoods are all scattered throughout Kennesaw with a bit of commercial areas here and there. I'd say there's a little less commercial areas in Kennesaw than you would find in like Marietta or Atlanta or Alpharetta. For the most part, the main commercial areas in Kennesaw are on Barrett Parkway. This is like the main road with all of the commercial areas, all the big box stores, Target, Home Depot. There's also a Whole Foods there, Quick Trip, Chick-fil-A, which is absolutely the most important if you live in Georgia or any part of the South. So lots of big box stores, lots of different mom and pop restaurants that are my favorites. They're on Barrett Parkway. And this is kind of like the main shopping here in Kennesaw. Kennesaw does have a like downtown area, city center. You know, it's okay. It's not great. It's not like Marietta Square. I think the thing about downtown Kennesaw is that it's kind of scattered. It like wasn't really super well planned, you know, so there's some really newer parts of the downtown area and there's some older parts of the downtown part of Kennesaw. And so they're all right next to each other and it looks like a mess of an area. Some of it is really cool. Some of it is kind of old school. And it's like, somebody needs to do something about those old buildings there in downtown Kennesaw. But in general, it really is great. A lot of people, most people who live in Kennesaw enjoy hanging out there in the downtown part of Kennesaw. But that's really where like the city hall is. That's really where like the main, is there a city hall in downtown Kennesaw? Actually, I don't know. It's just considered downtown Kennesaw, Main Street. But the city center, really the commercial hub, is really Barrett Parkway. So downtown Kennesaw is a bit different. Barrett Parkway is where I would recommend going if you're looking for like shopping and restaurants, grocery stores, things like that are all off of Barrett Parkway. Okay, basements. If you're buying a home here, then you should definitely know about the basement situation here. I would say maybe a third to half of the homes in Kennesaw have basements, and some people, again, really want to have that basement, and some people are trying to stay away from the basements. In my opinion, it kind of depends on how the basement is finished. If you have the HVAC of the home, the air conditioner, heater, serving the basement area, then that's great. Absolutely, that's a good thing. But the thing is that many homes here in Kennesaw don't have the central HVAC serving the basement. And this could be kind of a problem because of the amount of humidity that we have here in Metro Atlanta. If you have a basement that's humid, it tends to lead to problems. And you want to make sure that you either have that HVAC working in the basement or you have a dehumidifier in the basement. Super common and super normal and acceptable to have a dehumidifier in a basement. And then that dehumidifier pulls all of the moisture out of the air and it directs that moisture through a hose outside of the home or maybe to like a drain or something. And so this is all definitely recommended. So you want to be careful when you're looking for homes in Kennesaw and you're looking at these basements. You want to make sure that there is some way the HVAC pulls out the moisture. The HVAC does the same thing that a dehumidifier does. It takes the air out of the room, including the moisture, and then it serves the room with cold air or heat from the heater. So either way, you want to make sure to have one of those two things when you're looking at basements in Kennesaw. Absolutely, one of my favorite things about living in Kennesaw is Kennesaw Mountain. Kennesaw Mountain is actually pretty close to the downtown area, and you can actually hike to the top of Kennesaw Mountain. It's about a mile hike, super steep, but you can also drive to the top of Kennesaw Mountain. And this is a really big draw for a lot of people, not only who live here in the city, but also people who live outside of Kennesaw. So lots of people regularly visiting Kennesaw Mountain. It's super popular, a great way to get outdoors and be in nature. Lots of hiking trails, not only to the top of the mountain, but lots of hiking trails all over the mountain. I mean, miles and miles. And so that's definitely my favorite part about living here. But there are also some downsides to living in Kennesaw. And some of the downsides are, deal breakers for a lot of people. And so if you're thinking about buying a home in Kennesaw, you absolutely need to know about the bad parts of Kennesaw. In fact, I made an entire video about all the things to be careful of when buying a home here. You can check out that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.